What's going on, beautiful J4 family? Thank you all for joining us for another edition of Dad's Talk. This afternoon, I'm very honored to have a dear friend of mine from many moons ago, Dr. Rischer. When I knew him, he wasn't a doctor at that particular time. He was a leader on the campus at Texas State University, always committed to youth development and through youth development, his own personal growth. Now he's a PhD and focuses on math is money, which we would get into. But before we start, welcome. Whether you're in Facebook Live land or LinkedIn land or YouTube, thank you guys so much for joining us. Truly appreciate you all being here. Happy Easter to you if that's what you celebrate. Hope your Sunday's been off to a great start and that your coffee was just right. Here for J4 Conversation, we're focusing on men, particularly men, fathers who are developing sons and daughters to become the best possible humans they can become and on a pathway to independence. Before I start, shout out to a couple of Facebook pages that I'd recommend dads you consider joining. Proud Black Fathers is one where folks dialogue, seek advice, share pride moments, and those kind of things. And then the other one is Black Fathers. But we do this because 51% of our babies are born to single parent homes, and that's a problem. And so I figured we want to just contribute a little bit of content in the space of fathering to underscore the importance of it and being in our children's lives in intentional kinds of ways. So without further ado or delay, let me bring in my guest, Dr. Rischer. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing very well this morning. I greatly appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Man, D, I've been wanting to get you on here for a minute, but so glad that you're here. Very excited to learn not only about your book, but also your entrepreneurial financial independence project that you're activating in a number of different spaces. Shout out to Myron Douglas. Good to see you, brother. Appreciate you being here. One of our previous guests, Dr. Rischer. Let's introduce you. Tell the folks who you are. Where you from, brother?
I'm originally from Fort Worth, from this Black community named Stop Six.
Drop six, baby. So tell me a little bit about the community, man. Was it y'all living high on the hog and Stop Six, or what? Tell me a little bit about it.
Man, the beautiful thing about my upbringing, being born in the 70s, is that I had the great privilege to live in an all Black community. That was every school in this community is named after a Black person.
Okay.
This is still in the time when, if you went to the corner store, it was owned by a Black person. So everything was Black, all about the community and so forth. I attended Dunbar High School, which is named
Okay.
after a famous Black poet, Paul Laurence Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful thing about going to Dunbar, the other beautiful thing was that my father was a graduate of Dunbar, as well as six, seven of my other uncles and aunties that are siblings of my dad. They were graduates of Dunbar High School. So I took it upon myself to make sure, although I had other options to go to some other high schools based upon, academics, I still wanted to, represent the Dunbar Stop Six brand and follow my heritage.
No, that's beautiful, man. It's a rare experience in for our age set, you're a little younger than I, but to be raised in sort of a thriving, localized Black community. If you're ever in the Fort Worth area, definitely pull on over there to Stop Six and check out Dr. Rischer's stomping grounds. So from Stop Six to PhD, talk to us, man. What is your current profession, or what was your current profession?
Well, my current profession is basically I'm an author. I'm still an educator. I worked in the public school system for 21 years, mainly as a math teacher. I've held many roles as an administrator, from numeracy coach, dean of students, dean of instruction, assistant principal, and principal. Worked in charter schools, public schools, so I have a wealth of experience and knowledge working with young people, primarily middle school, which is my baby. A couple of years ago, I decided to retire from public school education,
Right,
and I
right.
want to do my own thing after 21 years. And we can get into the reason why I chose to do that here shortly.
No, beautiful, beautiful. And got mad respect, because either you'll work, for a significant part of your time for someone else, but for those folks who are taking these leaps of faith and trying to work for themselves and be fiscally minded, oriented, man, hats off to you, D. But in the space of dad's talk, you're also a father. Tell me about your children.
I have two daughters, 16 and 14. Taylor is my oldest, as well as Janae, who's my youngest.
All right,
They're
so two
very
parents.
very creative. Um, I would say right brain dominant, so they're very artistic artists, which they get from those artist skills, which they get from their mother. Definitely not me, because I'm more left brain dominant,
Right.
structured, disciplined, in order. So that's how I operate.
Yeah, that's that math side of your head, but that's the importance of two-parent homes, right? You know, you got your wife more on the art creative side, and then you got you on the more logic side, but your babies can see that and get that balance. So, D, welcome John Bland in the house, representing Stop Six, or shouting out Stop Six. For those of you all listening in, thank you so much. Come on over to YouTube and like the page, give us a subscribe, and share it outward as we begin this conversation. So, you're an author. Dr. Rischer,
Yes.
tell folks about your book, kind of what motivated you to write it, and particularly how that then connects to Math is Money.
Well, here's my book, Lessons That I Learned from My Father and My Brother. In 2019, right after, actually the day after I defended my dissertation, which was related to studying the impact of mentoring on males, I wanted to do something special to recognize the accomplishment by honoring my dad and my brother. My brother passed away in 2017 from a massive heart attack.
Man,
He was going from the bedroom to the kitchen, and fellow passed away. And
man,
my father, who's still living, I wanted to do something to pay tribute to these young men, because I looked at my journey, and I'm a young person from the inner city that has 5 college degrees. Not only that, I was born with a learning disability, and so at the age of 3, my parents took me to a psychiatrist to have me evaluated because I struggled speaking. And based upon that evaluation, the doctor told my parents at that time, your son will not finish high school, and at
mm,
best, he will become a janitor. And I didn't learn this until I was about 24 years old. I was in the midst of getting my first master's, and I was pissed, AJ. I mean, I was
yeah.
pissed. And so at that
Hold,
time,
hold on, D. So your parents got this silly information, but they held it from you, right? They didn't want that on your spirit. They didn't want that to be the bar to set the stage, right?
I'm not even sure. I was so upset when they asked. I didn't even ask the question, like, why did y'all not tell me? But I did question that. And honestly, AJ, I didn't even want to go back and ask. I just knew that this information was withheld from me. And it was probably good that it was, because
Yeah.
for me to receive that information at the age of 24 was like, wow. But I attribute like a lot of the lessons that I learned from my father as well as my brother, with just preparing me to be a man that was responsible and successful. And me writing the book was paying tribute to that, because I had that father that was, I want you to go to college, I want you to be better, but not understanding why. And it wasn't until I graduated with my undergrad, I think it was the next day, I said, hey man, I appreciate it, because I didn't understand. And here I was going through college, just like, okay, let me get this degree. And I ended up getting a degree in recreational administration, because at the time I wanted to hurry up and get out, and I was too embarrassed to tell people that I actually wanted to become an educator. Like, I wanted to
Oh,
teach. But
you're
with those
embarrassed by that?
pressures, go to school, be a doctor, make money. I was more on the, man, I just want to give back to the community. But I was too afraid to follow what I really wanted to do. And it
Was there
wasn't
stigma?
until,
Was there stigma around that education in the community, or be a teacher? Was there stigma around these things?
yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily a stigma, but it was, go for a job that where you're gonna get paid. And I had no concept of money. I just knew that in order to get money, you had to work for it. So, when for us, it was always, just having enough to take care of your needs. And my father used to say, if you take care of your needs, you'll. So, our family structure wasn't based upon make money to become wealthy, so that you can live out your dreams. I do realize that I am a dreamer, but my dreams were small. And so
Okay.
one of the things that I learned later in life was to have big dreams. And I tell my kids, or I tell the youth that I work with, man, dream big. It doesn't matter what it is, but dream big. Don't limit yourself. And so after I defended my dissertation, I started this journey of writing a book, and I was able to successfully get the first 3 chapters pretty flawlessly. I had an outline, got to writing, and I was good to go. And then hit that writer's block. It was like, man, I'm stuck. And
Right.
I was in
Right.
this phase of just trying to do it all myself. And then when COVID hit, a lot of, you just get a lot of revelations. And one of those revelations was, I need help. I need to put together a team, and it's okay to ask somebody to give you some guidance to complete this process. So when COVID hit, I got involved with a couple other things, got certified as a nutritionist. I started, really studying stocks, and I got some help with the person to finish writing my book. She gave me a structure, she gave me a format, and I give a shout out to Ritlux writing firm. But Takara was real good to just give me that structure I needed to finish. And a month and a half later, I'm done. And a couple of weeks later, the book is a hard copy. And I started that journey of just recognizing my father, my brother, with 5 lessons or 5 quotes that are instrumental for young people, particularly young men, to grow into responsible adulthood.
Let me stop right there. That's a wonderful thing. To honor your father and your brother. May he rest in peace, both. But to do that in sort of a permanent form, once you produce a book, it remains a permanent legacy, right? It's forever there. From fathers listening in, one way to punctuate your own fatherhood, which is directional towards your children, is to reflect back and give deference and honor to your own fathers. It kind of narrows you. I just took a father-son trip with my dad to New Orleans, and it was both enlightening for me to understand his deep roots in New Orleans, but it was also this proud moment, I imagine, for him, or both of us, but particularly him, to spend this time with his son. So it was this juxtaposition between father, I am a father, but at the same time, I'm poignantly a son, right? And to do something like a poem, a book, some sort of gesture of reflection, man, much respect to you. Don Clydes is sort of underscoring this here, wants us to post a book. It's called Lessons I Learned from My Father and My Brother. Where can someone get it if they're interested, D?
They can get it directly on my website, which is mindfulenergyteas.com, or they can go to Amazon and purchase it as well. And there's one other thing I want to highlight, AJ, because you're very instrumental with this as well. And so, and actually, I didn't develop the subheading until maybe 2 weeks before publishing the book. And it's the power of mentoring. And you know
Mhm.
how important mentoring is to me, because I look at you as a mentor when I was an undergrad.
Right.
But what I realized is that those lessons were the foundation of mentoring. So without my father, without my brother, you know, I don't know if I have the true understanding of how to become a mentor. So although yes, my father is a disciplinarian, he was very instrumental with talking to me from a father's son. Let's have this conversation about sex. Let's have this conversation about marijuana. Let's have this conversation about being a man, what to look for in a partner. And then here was my brother that was teaching me about confidence, teaching me how to approach females, how to be fearless. And so when I was thinking of a subheading, I was like, man, like it's these two individuals who are the foundation of the mentoring work that I do. What I was looking for in individuals such as yourself, such as Lemon, such as Terrence Wright, Dexter Lee, because
Team, team.
these are individuals when I was an undergrad leaving Stop Six, attending college, who became my mentors. Earl Mosley, rest in peace. Kiev Tatum. So, I owe a lot to my father and my brother, but it was the way they positioned themselves to make me go out and find a Vincent Morton. Like when I met Vincent, it was like he's a duplication of my brother. And so, Vincent is like Lemon is like, the college father, the college big brother.
Right, right.
He's the Messiah for me. So I owe him a lot, man. And I'm just thankful to all of you guys at Texas State, Southwest Texas State University.
Yeah, you're going to represent the original name.
SWT, baby.
Yeah, for those of y'all listening in, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comment. We'd love to address them. We're talking with Dr. Rischer, and you all can hear a certain humbleness in his voice because he has mad respect at the first nuclear level for father and brother, but also has always sort of gravitated towards other men in his spaces. I was very fortunate enough to be one of those men some 20 some years ago. but he also has a high deference for men in his life. That underscores the importance we have as fathers to have a community, right? A community of people that guide us, that motivate us, and that challenge us to dream big, as you talked about. So Dewayne, talk about chapter 5 in the book and how that then uh, kind of catalyst to math is money.
Okay, so chapter 5, and again, I have 5 chapters that stem from quotes from my dad and my brother. So chapter 1, if you feel good, you look good. Confidence. Chapter 2, which is my favorite quote, which came from my father. I don't give a damn if you're a shit shoveler. You be the best goddamn shit shoveler there is, and that taught me hard work. Be passionate. And then there's, don't count your chickens before they hatch. That's from my brother. Being patient. And chapter 3 is excuses are like assholes. Everybody has one. So my father was like, man, don't make excuses. If you got a job to do it. And then we've all heard, which is chapter 5, we've all heard money don't grow on trees. And these are quotes that, my dad and my brother would say repeatedly, like they stuck in the brain. But, money doesn't grow on trees. So my father, if we're talking about this concept now, based upon the information that we have, he was old school in terms of save, put money back, pay yourself your 10%, save. And nowadays, we have a lot more information to help us understand that saving is not the way to build wealth. You need to invest your money. But it was still that foundation that I knew that I couldn't just always receive a paycheck, be compensated, and just waste my money. So there was always those lessons. Make sure you take care of your family. Make sure you take care of your needs. If it comes down to getting a new pair of tires and buying shoes, you get the new pair of tires for your vehicle. And so it was that concept. But as I was, working and being a professional, especially in the education, we're limited in terms of trying to be compensated for our skill set based upon the structure of the pay system. And so a couple of years ago, I probably say 4 or 5 years ago, I got to a point where I realized I am living for retirement. And I was
Right,
about 42,
right.
43 years old. Like, man, I got to do this another 16, 17 years in order to be free. And so I enjoy working with young people. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy mentoring, but I no longer enjoy the way the system was set up, that teaching or the education system is all about teaching to the test, or it's database. And it was the year 2021, January 4th, we had come back from winter break, and the principal says, all right, guys, the new norm is data. And it was at that moment I said, you know what? This is my last year.
You knew.
This isn't fun anymore. And then I was also realizing that the standards are not set up to teach our youth. And when I'm saying I'm talking about those in the low socioeconomic communities and urban areas. It's not teaching them about building wealth. And so here I am finding myself teaching ratios or teaching surface area, different shapes and geometry, but nothing is about, okay, let's create a budget. What's the difference between assets, liabilities? How do we invest in stocks? Why do we invest in stocks? How do we calculate dividends? There's so many mathematical components to building wealth, but at the fundamental level, our youth are not being taught that. Furthermore, if we look at our third grade test scores, our kids are still, again, my baby was 6th grade. Kids are coming to 6th grade, still not have mastered their multiplication and division facts. And we're talking about 3 years having learned or being introduced this skill. And so I'm also have a t-shirt business, and I just created a design the other day, and it says mental math makes money. And how is that? Why is that? And the reason is because if somebody at the basic level of, working at McDonald's, you need, in order to calculate or know how much money you're going to get paid, get compensated, it involves multiplication.
Right.
And it's, we're talking about 18, 19, 25-year-olds who still struggle with basic multiplication facts, and they can't calculate their paycheck. And so,
let me jump in right quick. So you're saying there's a correlation between the 3rd grade reading level, maybe an ensuing comfortableness with basic arithmetic, that is a hindrance because basic calculations that are mathematically based, tied into paycheck, hourly earnings, taxes, all that kind of stuff, if they don't have a comfort in fundamental mathematics, it hinders their sense of fiscal direction or assertion and control and management?
Absolutely, because they don't have the confidence and the skill set of those fundamentals. So how can you even successfully pass algebra at the high school level, algebra 1, algebra 2, or even geometry, if you're still suffering? I mean, if you're still weak and suffering those calculations of just simple mathematics. And
Mm.
so, I found myself being able to get a child to pass or do well on their sixth grade assessment, but they still had gaps that lingered from third, fourth, fifth grade. And so that's a problem, because if you don't have a teacher such as Dr. Rischer in the seventh, eighth, or ninth grade, and so forth, then what happens? You go back into that math is not my favorite subject. I can't do this. You limit yourself. And when you're limiting yourself mentally, that's going to transfer into those jobs that you are pursuing. And so it's going to be those lower levels. And again, my quote for math is money is, if you can do math, you can put money in your pocket. And so, what I'm doing right now is trying to expose the children that these are the things that help you build wealth. And this is how it's tied to the basic math operations.
So what is day one in the classroom like? And typically what's the age set that you're working with? And how do you take something as, fundamental as arithmetic, but then make the leap to financial wealth?
Okay. So day one is basically the introduction, and it's to set the tone. So the couple of things that we talk about is, what is wealth? There's a difference with being wealthy and being rich. And one of the things I try to pin to the students is, when you're rich, it's temporary. But when you're wealthy, you understand how to allow your money to work for you. And also, you can be wealthy in other things such as love, such as kindness. So you want to be wealthy as a person. You don't want to just be rich, because whether you win the lottery, you come across $1 million, if you don't have a plan of how you're going to grow that money, then you're going to lose it just as soon as you got it. The second thing, especially when we're dealing with the urban communities, I ask the question, who's the wealthiest person to have ever lived?
Huh.
And most students will say Bill Gates. They'll say Elon Musk. I say, no, the wealthiest person to have ever lived is Mansa Musa. And a
Mansa
lot of,
Musa.
here's the funny thing. Let's say I have a class of about 20 students, and on the first day, and I've seen this past year, there's at least one student that will know that, one student. And I will reward them, which we can talk about later. I give them this special reward if they know that. But the point I try to make is, Mansa Musa is from West Africa. He was the emperor of Mali, and he had accumulated a net worth that's equivalent to $400 billion. 400
Dang.
billion. And the beautiful thing is, it's the year 2022. We're talking about 400.
Yeah, he was banking. He had turned the currency of gold. They took like 20 years or 2 decades to recover when he took his Hajj to Mecca, because he had distributed so much gold in his Hajj, in his travels, that he tilted the value of gold.
Yes. But
Hmm.
and then the other point that I make is, this proves that we come from wealth. We don't come from slavery. We don't come from the incarceration system. We have all of these numbers that are presented to us that says, for every three black men that you see, one is locked up. But our young people don't know that we come from a land of kings and queens. And so that's
So,
the first thing I try to highlight.
so you're using cultural roots as well, right? So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And then I also bring in historical facts such as Black Wall Street. Look at what we had during this time frame. And let's look at some of these other situations or communities such as Rosewood, where we had our own self-sufficient communities. But because of an isolated incident, damage came through, burnt the city, burnt the town, burnt the community, burnt the businesses, murdered our people just for being successful.
Okay, so we're talking math, but you're talking about cultural esteem, cultural history, a sense of self, the fact that wealth accumulation is not something new to us, that as a collective group we've been in these spaces before, and if one can do it, if one has done it already, they can do it again, they can replicate it, right? That's okay.
Absolutely. And I know you've heard the phrase, you don't know where you're going until you know where you come from. So
True.
given this historical context says that we've done this before. Let's do it again. We don't have to look at you don't have to look at your present circumstance and say, nah, I can't do it. I'm growing up in a single parent household. My mother hates her job, and we're barely making ends meet. That's fine. But soon at the end of this class, when you have your wealth building plan, that's right. Every student will walk away with a wealth building plan that highlights or identifies all the steps that you need to take, that you will take, whether you graduate from high school and start working, go to college, go to the military, or start a business. It will have step by step what you will be able to do for the next 30 years to build your wealth. And the most important thing, especially when I'm talking to the young men, try to avoid having children out of wedlock. Make sure that you are ready and responsible, because though something like that can easily take away $1,100 a month due to daycare, child support. And so I try to give the students the information to say, if you want to get here, these are the things that you have to do along the way.
So you're also underscoring life lessons. You're talking about clarity of what this is about, right? You're explaining the value of this information, which is an educator's tip or tool, is when you're introducing concepts that they don't know apply directly to their life, they can tend to tune out. But if you can say, this is why, and this is the benefit of what we're about to do, that's certainly a teacher's tip. But I like how you're also then weaving in life lessons. They say about $280,000 to raise a kid from birth to 18. And you want to do that out of planning and not necessarily passion. So I really dig, you planting them seeds about intentional fathering. So all kind of lessons are intertwined in here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell young men, you can have 2 minutes of pleasure and it's going to cost you $66,000 in 5 years.
Yeah. For 2 minutes of pleasure, right?
Yes.
Condoms, man. Wear your condoms. All right. Now, how is it received? Do the young people receive it once you contextualize it, or are they still a little resistance?
Well, I would say this. One of the signs that I had in January is when I call these students my alumni. But when I had the students from the first semester, when they came back in January, when they saw me at the school and they said, man, can I take this class again? Like, man, Dr. Rischer, I'm focused on these assets, so that language, that use of language, or just coming back to me and say, hey, can I take this class again? And at the schools that I'm at in Fayetteville, North Carolina, at Smith High School, I've had a couple of students who have been able to take the class again. And what I have found is that when they take it the second time, it really makes sense. It really makes sense. And so that first time, it was still like trying to play with some things. But, I have my workbook right here, and it's 37 pages, and there's 7 lessons. And it basically, like I say, takes a kid from what's the difference between asset liability to creating a budget, to when you create that budget, you have enough money saved up. We're going to take this money. We're going to start investing in stocks. We're going to apply the rule of 72. We understand how to calculate compound interest, and we know how to make our money grow and work for us. That's the most important thing. And if I can convince those 18-year-olds that are in high school, that are juniors and seniors, to open up a Robinhood or Webull account and start investing, I don't care if it's Nike or Procter & Gamble. I tell them, just find one company that you can invest in, come to high school, and have your money working for you at the same time.
All right, let's pause here, y'all. We are talking to Dewayne Rischer. Dr. Rischer, thank you all for joining us. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'd love to address it. We're talking about his work in the space of fiscal literacy, primarily with Title I schools and colleges, working with young urban youth to change their financial circumstances. Scrolling at the bottom is the website there. If you all have interest in talking to Dr. Rischer or bringing him in to your space, that's where you would go to access it. So, Doc, talk about Robinhood. I'm assuming it's an app that saves things. That's something a father can recommend to a child right now. What is it? How do you use it? And what's its value?
Well, I'll talk about Robinhood and Webull. Those are 2 broker apps that allow you to buy and sell stocks. The reason why I encourage young people to start there is because they're free. And so it's easy to get onto as long as you're 18 years old. If you're 16, you can still invest in stocks, but you have to set up what's called a custodial account. And Robinhood and Webull, they do not sponsor those type of bank memberships or broker memberships, but you can through TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, some of those bigger companies, they offer UGMA accounts, again, custodial accounts.
That's powerful. You know, technology, the use of it is letting folks get a head start. But why do you think historically there's been pause in our community around particularly stocks? Have you thought much about that? I understand savings, I understand credit scores, but there seems to be a pause when it comes to stocks. What do you think is underlying that?
Man, I think it comes down to two phrases: learn the game, play the game. We just haven't been taught the game, and I think the second thing is fear. We've been taught primarily to save money, put it in the bank, and thinking that is going to grow. I'll tell you a funny story. A couple of years ago, I got excited because I had gotten this offer and it said that the bank was offering 2% return on your money. I was like, oh man, I'm finna really get into it and invest my money. A couple of years later, I realized, man, that's pennies. That's nothing.
Right.
I need 10%, 12%, heck, 30%. And, again, when I go back to that circumstance of realizing I'm living for retirement, now I've learned to be more aggressive. Even though I'm 48, I'm living to 100. So I still have enough time to catch up. But in the meantime, I'm learning how to, I'm doing a better job of letting my money work for me. And I'm also positioning my children to have their money working for them right now. So I've set up accounts for my children so that they have, let's say $50 a month going into an investment account, so that when they're 30, 35 years old, if they get to a point like, I don't like what I'm doing, I need something different, they're going to have this seed money that's available. And hopefully it's about $100,000 or more. And they'll have this seed money to live out their dream. But in the meantime, it's to let it grow.
Let me pause right there. So one thing is, we have to admit there is some risk, right, in the stock space, right? There's risk.
Yes.
Yeah, and that could be, I mean, what you would just your stock would depreciate, and you would have to sell it for less than what it's valued at when you bought it. Is that the risk area?
Yeah, the risk is losing money, but at the same time, if you compare putting your money in the bank that's growing at less than 1%, it's not earning anything. And the thing about investing in stocks or whatever you choose to invest in, you have to do your homework. But again, I go back to the phrase, learn the game, play the game. So when you allow yourself to separate from, like for me, I'm a sports junkie, but I've had to learn, hey, I need to take a break from football games or basketball games. I'm spending more time reading books on top of books, reaching out to John Bland, who's on this call, and say, hey, man, like, give me some information, networking with different people to learn more about investing in the right tools. And of course, the more you teach something, like when you teach something, you realize that's why that is. Oh, that makes sense. So I've been on this journey when, as I'm teaching, and I don't know everything, but I know enough to share with the students how to get started. At the end of the day, my curriculum is about getting young people started, allowing them the opportunity to know what's out there, so that at the age of 18, again, regardless of what path they take, they know that they can have their money working for them based upon the lessons that they learned in Math is Money.
Right. And if you all are listening in, welcome. Please post any questions you might have. Love to take a little time with Dr. Rischer to answer them. Do you recommend, and I want to ask about your children here in a moment, but do you recommend a financial advisor to help you to think through some of these investments?
I do, especially if you're talking about big money. So you learn yourself, like knowing the difference of, do I want to invest in mutual funds? Do I want to invest in the stock market? There's different packages or programs out there. So you want to familiarize yourself with this much information. Again, the more you know, the more pushback you can give to somebody when they say, yeah, I'm going to put you in this program and it's going to pay you 2%. You're going to get a 2% return. But I don't want to deal with you because I need to talk to somebody that's going to give me the national average of about 10%. And so, again, just having this background knowledge and awareness can help you. I'm in a situation where I got a financial advisor. I got another financial advisor to do some investing for me. And, I come to find out he put my money in a mutual fund. So we have to have a conversation because I don't want my money in a mutual fund because mutual funds have a lot of fees. And so if they have a lot of fees, what does that mean for me? That means I'm losing
Less
a lot of
money.
money.
Less money. Well, it's important that you do have some financial advisement expertise, someone that can be a sounding board for you. But to Dr. Rischer's point, you got to do your own research. I like the point about you said something parents can do right now with their children who are young, under 18, 10 years old, whatever the case may be, but that you can begin to set aside small increments of money that over a projected period of time will become more substantial. That's something that a father or mother can do right now. Can you give us a little bit more on maybe what they could do, where they would go, what approaches they would take?
Well, here's the first thing I would say, and this is something that, hindsight 2020. The first month after my children were born, I should have set up an investment account, let's say $50 a month for 18 years. At the end of 18 years, if they want to go to college, they don't get a scholarship, bam, we got money. If they should happen, and again, another thing that I teach my students is don't go to college on a school loan. Do not go to college on a school loan because when you graduate, you're automatically behind. So if you're going to go, pay as you go or earn a scholarship. Now, if you have this seed money and you do take out a small loan, hopefully you got enough money with that seed money that your parents have invested for you for now 23 years. You can take that money, pay off that school loan, and you're not behind. If you continue to let the money grow, again, in 30 years, maybe you have $100,000, $200,000, and you say, you know what, this is just not working out for me. Let me go out and buy me a fourplex apartment. Let me buy a couple of vehicles, start a two-row car rental business. The options are out there. But for many of us, our parents were pushing us to go to college, and we did. But then when we get out,
Yeah.
I didn't have any school loan, but I didn't make enough money to say, okay, I'm gonna build wealth. And I married my wife, and she had younger brother and sister that she was raising, and I helped take them in, and then we had a child, and no foundation to start building wealth. You're living paycheck to paycheck. And so
Right.
in order to stop us from living paycheck to paycheck, we have to become aware that between 18 and 23 or 23 to 26, 27, we can start putting in practices that help us build wealth along the way and then help our children make sure that our children have wealth when they are 18 or 23 and 30 years of age.
Man, D, I really like your thought about not taking out student loans. Ultimately, if a person is making a choice between college and the affordability factors there, then certainly you got to consider all your resources. But as parents, if we can get our children through college, if that's what we want, if that's what they want, debt free, then they start off not having the 6 months after graduation, the monthly payment. The other piece is, and many of us are able to do that, but we don't give them a nest egg to then launch into life on their own terms. We in absence of not doing something like you said very early on, imagine if we had set aside $20, $50 from once they were born. You then hand them a nest egg that they could put towards a house, they could put towards an entrepreneurial venture. And to me, that's the next phase, right? We're first generation kids. Our parents have a certain level of living. We've elevated that level of living, but what is next, right? So it's not only debt free, but also begin to create a nest egg that they can then inherit and then, live a different financial circumstance than we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are getting close to the time here. The other thing I want, D, if you could speak on, and not to give away all the secrets, y'all check out his class. He's a professor, an educator for a number of years, but now is doing significant mathematical work, cultural work, historical work in the space of youth wealth generation. The 72 principle, D, give us a little bit about what that is.
The rule of 72. So basically, it's a calculation to determine how long it will take for your money to double. So if you have $10,000 and somebody says, okay, I can double your money in 4 years at 3%, you would take the number 72 divided by that interest rate, which is 3, which will give you 24. So it will take 24 years in order for your money to double. So that $10,000, it'll take 24 years. Now, if we're talking 12%, we take 72 divided by 12%, that equals 6. So it will take 6 years for the 10,000 to double. So again, these are the little nuances that you want to know and be aware of when you're searching for a financial advisor. Again, they will take advantage of you if you don't know some of these basic facts. And so this is where, you can take advantage of your knowledge and say, hey, no, you're not going to grow my money at 3% in 6 years. It's going to take 24 years. And what we also know is that normally it takes about 7 years for money to double. And so depending on the philosophy that you take as an investor, you're going to accumulate a lot of wealth of information, and that's going to be your game plan for how you want to secure financial freedom and freedom of time.
Powerful, D. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. Nope, folks have been pretty active. Thank you guys so much. Please also head over to YouTube and give us a like, subscribe. It helps us grow. And if you know fathers who could benefit from father conversations with other dads, please tell them about J4 Conversations. The last question I have for you, D, is a person graduates from high school or college, they get their first job, all right? They get their first job. Most people will create a life that lives up to the last penny of their earnings after taxes. What do you recommend a person does when they've gotten their first job offer and they're financially minded?
The first thing is to create a budget. Create a budget. And when you create that budget, pay yourself first. Identify a percent, somewhere between 10 to 20% for what you're going to pay yourself first. So in our program, we normally start with the jobs such as Amazon that's paying $15 an hour, 40 hours a week. That's about $600 a week, gross, $2,400 gross. And then we factor in a net of $2,100. So if you just have a $15 per hour job, 40 hours a week, you're going to bring home about $2,100 a month. And we go from there. So if you take 10%, and that's $210. Now you take this money, whether you give it to a financial advisor or you invest it in stocks or however you choose to invest, you know that you have this seed money that you're using to invest so that your money's working for you so that you can create financial freedom and freedom of time. And every time you get a pay raise, again, increase that amount and just keep allowing your money to grow. Now, after that, you're going to pay your rent, you're going to pay your electricity, all of your bills, and you have to make a decision. Is it necessary for me to buy a car? And at that rate, probably not a good idea, because then you're looking at about $1,100 a month going towards a car payment, insurance, and gas. You can take that money, and let's just say you use $400 of that to get to work by Uber or Lyft. At least you were $700. Invest that money, so that in 3-4 years, you can buy you a fourplex. You buy you a fourplex. Now you're living, you can create a scenario where you live mortgage free. Other residents are paying for the mortgage. You take that money and you continue to invest it. And maybe in about 15 years, you retire and live the life of your dreams, because now you're in a better situation of having your money work for you. And the flip side is you don't follow that. And we know what it looks like. You have children early, you're not married, you got a bunch of debt, credit card debt, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're frustrated, and you robbing and you're stealing or selling, whatever it may be, because you didn't have a plan. And so hopefully the goal is that the students that take Math is Money, again, when they walk away with that wealth building plan, they follow it to a T and position themselves to be better off than if they did not have a plan and they weren't prepared for the trials and tribulations of life.
D, dopeness all around. Y'all fathers, we need to have conversations or educate ourselves, right? We are not the most fiscally comfortable or willing to take risks, because generationally, maybe we just didn't have that teed up for us, right? But so we need to educate ourselves, if not already. Maybe, no matter what stage of life, think about our own budgeting and our own fiscal investments. But how do we leave a generational advancement where our children have a different economic circumstances than we have? Because we may have materialistic trinkets, but what debt do we have, right? How do we have children who have life, who have financial freedom, and can live a life of their own choosing rather than the rat race of working towards retirement. Beautiful D, it's been a wonderful conversation with you, man. Much respect for what you do. Y'all check out mathismoney.net. D, last word is yours. Talk to them.
Hey, if you can do math, you can put money in your pocket. Please check me out on Instagram, mathismoney888. And again, my website is mathismoney.net. Reach out. Again, you can purchase my book through Amazon, Lessons That I Learned from My Father and My Brother.
On that note, J4 Conversations, thank you guys for joining us. Peace, love. Peace, love.